What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Couch Coach Media, the On the Basis portion of. We're going to talk some baseball today. Obviously, a lot of signings have happened, a lot of trades have happened. Obviously, I'm a Yankee fan, Zach's a Met fan. Our two teams have probably made the biggest moves out of anybody else in this whole off-season period during the hot stove time. Let's jump right into it, Zach. I want to know how you feel about the Mets because they made a lot of big signings. Kodai Senga being one of them. Carlos Correa potentially. We don't know. I saw a rumor, which that's going to be a big portion of. I want to know how you feel about the Correa situation because I saw a report today that there might be another team now in play that Boris and Correa are talking to. That could all be smoke. I don't know, but I want to know, how do you feel about the Mets? Do you like all these signings? Do you think you guys now are ready to go because you lost Jacob deGrom, but you do get Senga. You got, who's the guy that you guys took from the Reds? Santana, right?
Oh, Quintana, yeah.
Quintana. You got Quintana. So I mean, you got Verlander, obviously. So your rotation is looking in pretty good shape. But I want to know, all in all, how you feel about it because, in my opinion, you guys did a great job of readdressing the bullpen, but it's still the same bats. And when it came down to it later on in the postseason, the bats weren't really doing a whole lot. So do you feel still confident in these Mets? Do you like what the offseason has been so far?
So I'll give you a little timeline of events here.
Yeah,
So I think the date was December 4th. I decided it'd be a good idea to take a shower some like late at night. I go in the shower 20 minutes later. Of course, Jacob deGrom. That nothing had happened in the offseason up to that point. It was dead. I thought deGrom would be one of the last people to sign. He's just a weird guy. And I come back and I got 400 texts. I got you trolling me, all caps text, ha ha ha. And then I'm like sitting there that night, I'm eating some chips and salsa, and I'm in my little dorm in the city, and I'm just like depressed. Like this is like the greatest player of my lifetime on any of my teams, and he's gone. And then I'm watching a little TV, and like the sadness turns into anger, and then I'm like, you know what? Screw this guy. He pitched 5 games last year. The Mets won 101 games without him, and then I was like, you know what, we got to do something quick. And Steve Cohn answers the next business day. That was a Friday night. Of course, DeGrom signs on a Friday night. And Justin Verlander's a Met that Monday. And the Mets go on that crazy spending spree. Jose Quintana, that's a really sneaky move. Verlander and DeGrom is a wash. Like, that's just a wash. Verlander comes in and he's just as good as he's not just as good as DeGrom. Nobody's as good as DeGrom. But Verlander comes in and that's a wash. He was the AL Cy Young guy last year. Quintana comes in to be your number 4. That was sneaky. I didn't think the Mets would get 3 starters like they did. I love the Quintana thing. He was really sneaky. He started game 1 for the Cardinals last year in the playoffs. So to slot that guy in at number 4 is pretty wild. And then the Senga thing, how can you not love that? I mean, the Mets have such a deep starting rotation that he's an unknown. He could come over and beat Tanaka and be an all-star, or he could stink, but that's why he doesn't have a very expensive contract. And then re-signing Nimmo was probably the thing I thought would happen least. I didn't think we were going to re-sign Nimmo because is Zach Arth will tell you many times, loves to get on base. He's the perfect leadoff hitter, but I thought that his market was going to be absurd because who wouldn't want Nimmo? Like the Yankees were heavily tied to Nimmo before they re-signed Judge. I thought Nimmo was going to leave. He stayed. And then I was like, all right, this was a great offseason. We signed David Robertson the next day. Not even mention the Diaz re-signing the day after the World Series.
Mhm.
David Robertson signing, and then we traded for like Brooks Raley. Bullpen's complete. We're bringing back the same lineup. Rotation's upgraded. Verlander and Scherzer are top 2, which like as like a baseball nut, like that's awesome.
Mhm.
2 Hall of Famers as your starter. I'm like, all right, this is good. And then you get the rumors about Correa. Remember we texted about the rumors about Correa?
Yeah.
10 minutes after we start texting. Anytime, I'm such a jinx. Anytime I mention something completely out of the blue happens. He signs with the Giants, and then 2 days later, there's all the smoke about him to the Mets, and we can dig back into that. But I think to be a successful offseason, I mean, it's hard to, with the amount of money they spent, to not say it was successful and they won 101 games. But if you add that kind of impact back, Correa is probably a top 10, top 15 player in the game. If you add that bat into this lineup, it's a pretty deadly team.
Yeah, listen, I think you make a great point in the sense that, like, when you spend this much money on your team, it better be a success. And I think it is, right? When you lose a guy like Jacob deGrom, you got to go out there and replace him. Max Scherzer's great, but he can't just be your number 1. I think, especially because he's older, he's gotten injured before. He's still, again, really great, but you have to go out there and get another guy to replace him, especially because I feel like to have a really good baseball team, like we saw with the Houston Astros and we saw with the Phillies this year going to the World Series, you got to have that 1-2 punch of it's kind of like an ace and a pseudo ace. You have to have somebody who's really good to back up the ace. Like Zach Wheeler and what's the other guy from the
Yeah,
Phillies?
Aaron Nola.
Aaron Nola, thank you. Yeah, Aaron Nola. And then you'd have like Framber and Verlander over in Houston. You have to have that. And when you lose a guy like DeGrom, you have to replace him. So that was huge for the Mets. Kodai was a big signing. I think that was one of the least surprises of this whole offseason. I
Oh
think it
yeah,
was
there was so much smoke. Yeah,
yeah, everybody kind of knew that Senga was going to go to the Mets. Senga's fastball is really nice. I think it's like straight shot, you always want to have a little bit of movement, but I feel like his is just so laser beam focused, like a
he's got
hundred.
that fork ball that comes
Yeah.
in like that too. That is not really seen in the big leagues.
Yeah, it's nice. So if he can get that stuff working, I think he's going to be really great for you guys. And the Correa thing is huge. Like all last season, what we were talking about was, oh, the Mets don't have a good enough right-handed bat to throw into the mix there. Especially somebody who can get in there. And I mean, you have Jeff McNeil who can hit all over the field. Mark Cannick can hit all over the field. Brandon Nimmo can. But I think the Correa one is huge because you have like that really balanced part of your bat. Like I'm not really expecting Jeff McNeil to go yard. I'm not really expecting Brandon Nimmo to go yard. They're just there to get on base. You put a guy like Carlos Correa in, he can get you 15, 20, 25 home runs a season and get a couple nice extra base hits to mix in. I think that's huge for you guys. And to that lineup, who, I mean, as I said earlier, last year, it was all about the pitching. And there was a lot of times, especially later in the season, where the Mets lineup really didn't perform up to par. But if you do lock down Correa, which I mean, again, it's still up in the air. I think he's going to still end up a Met. But that's going to be huge for them going forward. So yeah, I think the Mets have had a really good offseason this year. And Steve Cohen is not afraid to spend it. That's clear, right?
And two little, yeah, no, dude, his Uncle Stevie. How can you not love him? The dude's just this is what everyone dreams of. This is George Steinbrenner. This is just a fan in a environment where he can literally be a fan running the team. It's awesome. But to the Correa point, I think he will end up being a Met. All the
Yeah,
smoke today. If you remember, there was smoke that Correa was going to be a Met, and then an hour later he signed with the Giants. We just had smoke today that Correa is talking with another team. It's probably the Twins because if you fail two physicals, the leverage is all with the Mets right now to renegotiate that contract. And if they can get it down from 12 years, 315 million, you get Correa on like a 6 or 7 year deal, and then the rest of the contract's all incentive based if he can stay healthy. That's perfect because if he has worries about long-term concern, the next 5 years, he's still young. He's still in his prime. And he's one of the elite gold glove shortstops. And you can put him at third base. And the one thing I love about the Correa edition is people would think he'd probably hit in the top of the order. I think he'd probably slide in at 5 behind Pete Alonso. And if you have Pete Alonso hitting behind Lindor and Correa hitting behind Pete Alonso, you can't pitch around Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso's getting fat pitches over the plate. They're going to knock him out of Citi Field. So the protection there, and the Mets scored the fourth most runs in the big leagues last year. So they totally fell off at the end of the season. I wasn't as worried about the offense as everyone else. They're kind of new. Like unlike most teams, they had no playoff experience at all. So to kind of get their feet wet and then bring all these guys back and add to it is pretty interesting. And one other thing, you talk about Senga, Billy Epler is known to scout Japan. He was with the Yankees, who love the Japanese players. He's the one who signed Ohtani over to the Angels. Now we get Senga next offseason. Shohei Ohtani's a free agent. We're connecting the dots here. It makes a lot of sense.
it does.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does. No, it sure does. Especially because I mean, going back to last season, what was one of the biggest things the Mets needed? A DH. I think Vogelback's only on a 1 year this year, right?
Yeah, I think he's on a 1 year, $1.5 million contract. The kind of signings you need for when you have so much money on your roster.
Exactly. But I think bringing in Shohei and just throw him in there, replace Vogelback after this year, like that's huge for them. Also, because you don't know. I mean, after this year or next year, you never know when a guy like Verlander or Scherzer can say, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And they're competitors. So that might not happen for another 2, 3 years. But I'm just saying, you don't know when that could happen because they are up there in age. But yeah, no, I think for the Mets, I like your point about protection too. I think that's something we often don't think about. You just look at a stacked lineup and you're like, yeah, this is sick. But protection is huge, right? That was one of the biggest things for Judge last season was having a guy like when Stanton was out and Judge's production dipped a little bit, he had nobody behind him to protect him. And that guy usually is Giancarlo Stanton and now or Anthony Rizzo. When they were both hurt, they were just walking Judge and nobody could do anything behind him. I think it's huge now because I think in the past, I mean, yeah, if you want to put Vogelback behind Pete, I mean, you could still probably pitch around Pete and get Vogelbach out, especially if you force him to hit on the ground. He's not going to do anything with that. But yeah, having that ability to put Correa, slot him in right behind Pete, and then you have like who's usually your leadoff guy, Nimmo, right?
Yeah, so it'll be like Nimmo, Marte, right there, 1, 2, and those guys are very similar. They're high end base guys. And then you go to Lindor, who does everything. Then
Right.
Pete, then Correa, and then probably in the 6 hole would be Vogie, and
Mhm.
then McNeil, Kana, and whoever wins the catching job. That's a deadly lineup. Jeff McNeil won the batting title last year, and he's going to be hitting seventh or eighth.
Right.
It's
So
pretty wild.
who are you pitching around? You can't pitch around anybody.
Can't
Realistically, you
pitch
can't
around
pitch
any.
around anybody unless you're the guy that's slotted right before like Nito. And I mean
Yeah,
Nito's not even a bad guy either. He's
and
not like great, but he's not
And
terrible.
Francisco Alvarez could win the catching job in spring. And then
Right.
you have a guy who's projected to hit 25, 30 home runs a year in the
Exactly.
lineup as well. And it's crazy. You know, we talk about the Yankees and how you specifically want the young guys playing over IKF and Donaldson. Who doesn't? In the Mets, Beatty, Alvarez, and Vientos, and Mauricio now, 4 prospects who are all reaching the MLB level now, kind of blocked. So it's kind of interesting. A couple of those guys can't be here long term, especially if they sign Correa. Beatty's been playing a little left field, which makes some sense. He could be the left fielder of the future. But it'll be interesting to see how they work around that because you sign all these veteran players, you're blocking young guys. So I think the Mets have a couple more moves in them. Like if they do sign Correa, I wouldn't be surprised to see Escobar get traded because he's
Probably.
kind of blocked and he has some value. And I would also be surprised to see Carrasco get traded at some point this offseason because David Peterson was really good last year, and you kind of want the young guy in the rotation. But we can kick it over to the Yankees now. You know, I talk a lot about the Mets. We can kick it over to the Yankees. I'll give you my Yankees thoughts to start.
Okay, let me hear it.
I would like to praise the New York Yankees.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Okay.
Arson Judge, first of all,
Arson, that's my dude.
I
I
had
get
some
Arson
like
Judge too.
at first I kind of wanted him to sign with the Giants to like just troll you, and then I was like, you know what? We have podcasts. We like to talk about the Mets and the Yankees. I don't root for the Yankees, but the Yankees being relevant and the Mets being relevant at the same time, that's perfect for us. And Judge, it's just he's kind of New York. I kind of like that. Like I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Knicks fan. I kind of like that New York's on the rise. So like it's there's a little part of me. I never root for the Yankees. I don't even know if they played the Braves, I would just be in hell. I don't even know what I would do there. But
Yeah.
I'd like to praise him. I think the Carlos Rodon signing, outside of maybe, I think the Carlos Correa signing, if it happens just because it came out of nowhere like that, and the impact it has on the Mets and taking them over the top, is maybe the top signing. But I think if 1B is Carlos Rodon, because he opens up so many things for the Yankees. If you look, pitching was not the Yankees' problem last year at all, but adding let's face it, he's a top 10 pitcher when healthy now. Adding him with Garrett Cole, who I'm not a huge fan of, as we all know, but he's still a top 10 pitcher in baseball. Two top 10 pitchers. Them and the Mets. The Yankees probably have the best rotation in baseball to start the season, at least. You got Nestor, Severino, Montas. You have 5 all-stars in that rotation.
Mhm.
I love the Rodon move. I think it's perfect. It's a ceiling raiser. If you looked at the Yankees against the Astros outpitched them. It wasn't really the offense's problem. The offense didn't score a lot of runs, but to hang with those teams, you need to keep them in low scoring games. And Rodon is kind of a very similar pitcher to Garrett Cole. Big fastball, he can do it, and he just kind of feels like he'd be a good Yankee. He's same personality as Cole.
Yeah.
Scherzer. The one weird thing with DeGrom we talked about is he didn't feel like he fit in New York. Well, now Scherzer and Verlander, dogs, fiercely competitive. Rodon and Cole. That's going to be fun to watch. And I mean, Luis Severino is your fourth best pitcher. You're in a pretty good spot if Luis Severino is your fourth best pitcher.
Yeah. Let me first touch on the biggest signing, obviously Judge. That's a guy where if he went to the Giants, I mean, that would have really sucked. I was prepping myself when the Arson Judge tweet dropped. I remember I was working at the network that day and it just exploded because everybody's like, oh my God, he's leaving, he's leaving. I started coming to face the fact that, hey, maybe Judge is gone. Maybe this is when we do say goodbye. But then, we do re-sign him. You see him at the captain's speech. You see him, talking about up there with Jeter and Willie Randolph saying he's going to be a Yankee for life, a captain, whatever. It feels like that was the only thing that was going to happen, right? It felt like there couldn't be any other option than Judge being a Yankee for life because of the mysticism of the Yankees, because of what Aaron Judge means to the city. He's kissing the logo after a home run. He always had to go there. There was really no other option. If he did go somewhere else, that was a failure on Hal Steinbrenner. But it did feel like no matter what, Hal was going to step in, find a way to make it happen. I give a lot of props to Hal because everybody's always dumping on him, saying he doesn't want to spend. He's not his father, and maybe it is a good thing he's not his father. His father was very um, knee-jerk reaction type of guy. He would just go do it, fire a guy way too soon, cut a guy way too soon, make a crazy sign, and make a crazy trade. A lot of times it didn't work out. So maybe it is better. He's a little bit more thought out, a little bit more calm, a little bit more patient with his players and his signing. So yeah, that was one that was awesome. It was cool to see another guy get the C for the Yankees, especially when Jeter's coming to the ceremony, like the press conference where they named him. That was really, really cool. But yeah, I think Rodon is almost the bigger signing because I mean, if you just sign Judge and say that's it, we're calling it a postseason. I mean, not a postseason, sorry, an offseason. That's a failure. You're walking back into the season with the same team. It felt like Rodon was a must, especially with the rotation, right? You look at the rotation before Rodon. You got Cole, Severino, who can never stay healthy, mind you. Nestor Cortez, Frankie Montas, and then maybe like Domingo Herman. That is not a great rotation whatsoever. But now you look at it with the five guys that it has: Cole, Rodon, Nestor, Severino, and Montas. And if Montas can find what he used to be out in Oakland, or even three-quarters of what he used to be out in Oakland, that's huge for this rotation. Huge. So yeah, I think that was really the biggest move. All the Yankees need to do right now, I think, is find a left fielder, which I think they will, because there's a lot of smoke out there from Cashman going, no, we're going to settle with Hicks or Oswaldo. I think maybe they keep Oswaldo at left and then they try to get somebody before the trade deadline. But even that doesn't really feel realistic to me. I feel like they're going to have to try to make a move. I heard they want to get Brian Reynolds from the Pirates, but I heard that the Pirates are also asking for Nestor Cortez. And with how cheap Nestor Cortez is and how much years of control he has left, that's not going to happen. And with how good Nestor is, that's not going to happen. So it might take a lot for the Yankees to find a left fielder. Maybe a Max Kepler is a guy that they try to target. He probably will cost close to nothing. But yeah, no. Once we shore up left fielder, I think we'll be really happy with this team because Bader's on the roster now, playing well. Got Judge back. And you have that infield, which, again, if you inject a little bit of youth in there with a guy like Peraza or Volpe, I think that's huge because the left side of that infield is really what hurt us as far as the lineup goes with a guy like IKF, who, I mean, he was a decent hitter, but nothing crazy. And Donaldson was awful. DJ LeMahieu was hurt. So I think getting one of those young guys mixed in too, you're looking at a completely different lineup, great pitching rotation, huge for the Yankees.
Yeah, you talk about that left fielder. I saw Andrew Bennett. You guys offered Andrew Bennett a 10-year contract. He ended up in Chicago because they paid him $15 million a year, which is a little ridiculous.
Little
But I
crazy.
saw today he was asked about signing with the White Sox. He's like, "It's nice to be somewhere where I'm wanted." Some some strong words. He played like 20 games for the
Yeah, what are
Yankees.
we talking about? Not wanted, dude. Everybody was going crazy. They were calling Benny the Butcher, Benny Blanco. What are we talking about where I'm wanted? Get out of here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no. So all right, I came up with a little segment for us right now on the spot. It's called Connor's Corner.
Okay.
Yankees
I'm
related
interested. Like
questions.
Zach Attack? Is that what we're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
for?
but I'll stick with Yankees related questions.
Okay.
Who do you want the Yankees starting shortstop to be on opening day?
This might be a hot take here and go against other Yankee fans. And it depends on another factor, which I'll get into. But I'm gonna say as of right now, I want it to be Oswald Peraza. I think because Volpe's a little bit younger and a little bit less experienced, and Peraza's already had a little bit of time in the bigs. I'd like to see him get the start for now, especially if Gleyber Torres ends up getting dealt somewhere else, because I'd like to see Volpe play second if that's the case. Um, Unless the only thing that'll turn me around and say, you know what, let's give Volpe the job is if Volpe steps in spring training and like has an incredible spring training. He outperforms Peraza, or Peraza's dealt somewhere else. I'm fine with Volpe starting, but right now I'm leaning Peraza, and that's not long term. I think that's just opening day. I'd like to see him get the start, and we can get Volpe in down the line.
So last year, Jeff McNeil was struggling for the Mets, and everyone wanted him traded. Why does everyone want Gleyber Torres traded? I don't understand it. Dude's an all-star 2 years ago. I know he's never going to be that 38 home run guy he hit early in his career. Dude's like an above average second baseman. The young guys were not sure. If you guys are trying to win a championship. Why are you getting rid of good players? I don't get it.
Listen, I think it comes from almost like the post-traumatic stress of Yankee fans from the past, like having Clint Frazier, Gary Sanchez, Miguel Andujar on this team too long. And Glaber was in that batch of the baby boomers that came out that time. And I mean, he played great. I mean, we saw what happened with Clint Frazier. We saw what happened with Gary Sanchez. We saw what happened with Miguel Andujar. They ended up being worth nothing to the Yankees by the time their Yankees career ended. And we got close to nothing in return for getting rid of them. So I think even though he had a good season this last year, you saw him kind of fade off a little bit in August. And I think he picked it back up again once we got into like September, October. He was good again, really good again, actually, I think. But I think a lot of Yankee fans are worried that it's kind of a fluke thing. And I mean, he's never even come close to having that 40 or whatever home run season he had a couple years ago when he was a rookie. So I think because of that, Yankee fans are like, all right, let's deal him now before he really takes that dip like Gary did or like Frazier did. Um, I don't know. I go back and forth because I like his energy, especially when he was doing that rocking the baby thing after getting the final. Like I love that. I think he's a good locker room guy, but it does make me nervous because of what happened in the past.
All right. What's your most underrated Yankees move of the offseason, and why is it the Yankees re-signing Tommy Kahnle?
You knew that was going to be my answer. You knew. Tommy Kahnle's the guy, dude. Because when we got rid of Tommy Kahnle, I never wanted him to go. I love Tommy Kahnle. And I was pretty sad to see him go. I thought that was a big blow to the rotation. And now getting him back with the rotation that we already have of like Michael King, who I don't think is going to start the season. It might take a couple weeks for him to get back. But Michael King, Wandy Peralta, Clark Schmidt, if he's looking okay. That's such a good rotation when you add Tommy Kahnle in there too. Great. So such a deep rotation. Not rotation, sorry. Just such a deep bullpen. I
I
absolutely love it.
think,
Tommy
I
Kahnle's the
think, yeah, dude, I think Cashman's building like a modern bullpen. If you don't have an Edwin Diaz type, there's
Mhm.
not many elite closers left at baseball. If you don't have one of those guys, get as many great arms as possible. I feel like the closer role is such an ancient thing. Why does one guy have to pitch the ninth? Like you got Wandy Peralta back there. Marinaccio looked good at times last year. You got
Yeah.
Clay Holmes. Tommy Kahnle barely pitched for the Dodgers because of an arm injury, but he looked pretty good. Most teams in baseball were linked to Tommy Kahnle this offseason.
Yeah.
So you got arms like that back there. Well, and I love it. I love it. That's how you build a bullpen. All right,
Well,
last.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, real quick. I just want to say I love the idea of like the situational bullpen, like not necessarily sending a guy in to close out a game, but sending him in for the best part of the order. Like there was a lot of times in the postseason where they sent Clay Holmes in to deal with the 2, 3, and 4 hitters or the 3, 4, 5 hitters, and then they put in Wandy for 6, 7, 8. I love that idea. I love putting in Clay Holmes in the eighth, a little bit less high stakes, but you still get him in against the best part of the rotation. I think it's a great idea. I think more teams need to keep doing that.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Johnny Lasagna. That's a elite. You have about five guys who could be setup men on other teams, so they
With
can
a
cook.
great rotation too, that's
Great
elite.
rotate. Your pitching is great.
Mhm.
Pitching's great. The offense, infield positioning, a little weird still. Will Josh Donaldson and IKF be on this team come opening day?
That's tough. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. I don't want to say yes. I like the idea of keeping IKF as a bench guy and a rotational piece because he can play third and he can play short and he could probably play second even if you wanted to plug him in there. But Donaldson, I don't really want to keep him around. But just the more time that passes, it does feel like Donaldson is just because of how much money he's owed. It does feel like he's going to stay unless the Yankees do something crazy and package Donaldson with like Peraza and a lower prospect and send him somewhere else for a left fielder. That's the only way I can see things changing. But I think as of right now, it just feels like Donaldson and IKF can still be on the team.
Yeah, I see. I think Aaron Hicks is kind of stuck because he has 4 years left in his contract.
Yeah.
Uh, Donaldson, 1 year, 25 mil. I mean, that's not that easy to get rid of. Like, look, I mean, at some point, you got to follow the best thing for the Yankees. If the best thing for the Yankees is getting rid of him, just eat the money and get rid of him. Let the young guys play. Because you kind of have a logjam now, too. Like, DJ is probably going to be playing third base now that you got Rizzo here. One of the young guys is playing shortstop. One of the young guys is playing second, or Glaber is playing second. So DJ is going to have to play third base. And then you got Oswaldo Cabrera, who can play everywhere, too. I
Yeah.
think I would actually not get rid of IKF. I know everyone hates him.
Yeah.
If he's a backup shortstop, who the hell cares? It's a good backup
Exactly.
shortstop. He's a
Exactly.
gold. He was a Gold Glover at third base too. So if you're Donaldson problems, IKF can slide in at third base a little bit. So you got some moving parts. I mean, I would have preferred to upgrade if I was a Yankee fan over IKF or Donaldson. But since you didn't, I kind of like IKF. He's a little more versatile. He can do a little more things. He's fast. He can play third base. Obviously, he struggles with power, but his average is fine. So Donaldson, you got to get rid of him. That foul ball, or not that foul ball, the double off the wall to get thrown out is one of the worst baseball plays I've ever seen.
Which
And
one? Which one? There was like 5 or
yeah,
6 of them. It's
the
ridiculous.
playoff one. If I was Aaron Boone, he would have been out of the stadium. I would have kicked him out. So no, that just can't happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when you put it that way with all the different pieces we have in the infield, I think one of them somebody's going to have to get dealt. Whether it's Glaber, Donaldson, IKF, somebody's going to have to get dealt because you can't have all these infielders mixed in. Like it's not going to be DJ, so it's going to be one of the other three. I don't think it's going to be IKF. It's going to be Donaldson or Glaber. I think, and not that's not because Glaber is worse than any of them. I think it's because he has more value and they would like, be
Sure.
able to get a bigger return. It's got to be somebody though, especially if you want to plug the young kids in, which I think they really do. Because apparently Cashman said Volpe. He told Volpe that Volpe has a real chance to be the starting shortstop. So if somebody's gonna start, you're gonna have to get rid of one of those guys or whatever. But it's got to happen. It's got to happen.
All right, that's the New York segment. We'll be back after the break.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for waiting and hanging out. We did Connor's Corner. Now let's jump into Zach Attack. Zach, we're gonna kind of do a Mets focused one since you were kind enough to give me a Yankees focused one. I think I got to do a little bit of the same. Let me ask you, what has been your favorite signing this offseason for the New York Mets? There's been a lot, and there's been some big ones. Are one of the big ones your favorite, or do you have a lower level one that's kind of, someone that you really like?
It's an interesting question.
Mm.
I kind of love them all,
Mm.
but I love Justin Verlander, man. There's something so as a Mets fan, long suffering Mets fan, we don't really get stars, and now we have a team littered with stars, the most stars of any. We're the Dodgers. We're even more stars than the Dodgers usually have, and just the fact that Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer reunite after being an electric duo in Detroit, two of the best competitors. They're both locks of first ballot Hall of Famers, both of them, and intriguing. They're only 11 strikeouts or 5 strikeouts, something like that, apart on the all-time strikeout list. So these dudes who just are competitive maniacs are going to be going back and forth on the all-time list, kind of like Breeze and Brady were doing with the touchdown thing a couple years ago where they were still playing. It's got to be Verlander. Just the fact that we put a Hall of Fame pitcher into this starting rotation. There's just something so electric about the name Verlander. And like DeGrom's cool, but like there's something about signing new people to come play for the Mets, especially of that notoriety. It kind of fires you up the way that like re-signing someone doesn't. Not that I wouldn't have preferred DeGrom over Verlander.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's how I kind of felt about Rodon. Like just getting a new name of a big guy in the rotation is
Yeah,
just so invigorating. I mean, it's invigorating for us, but imagine what it feels like for the clubhouse too. That's got to be sick.
I'm already about to go buy a jersey. Like I got to walk around with that.
I know you got to put the Degrom one away. You wore that. I feel like you wore that.
It was in a fire pit backyard. So
Yeah. Did you actually burn it? Oh, I was gonna say that'd be like next level. That'd be
if he
crazy.
signed with the Braves or something, maybe I'd think about that. But like he's like a Ranger. Like I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna root against the guy. I'm just not gonna root for him. Honestly, I'll probably end up rooting against him just because I'm just that kind of person.
You're a
But
hater. I know. It's
but
okay.
like I don't know. I don't really have any feelings towards him. I'm not gonna be paying attention at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, also the Rangers will probably be relevant again, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So who do you think poses the biggest threats to the Mets this season in your division? Would you say could be the Braves, right? Could also be the Phillies. They made a big signing, Trey Turner. That was huge. I still don't love the Phillies. I mean, I think they're good, but I think their postseason was obviously just about a hot streak thing. Who do you think is the biggest threat to the Mets?
No, it's the Braves. To beat the best, you got to beat the best. It's the Braves. I mean, what is this Braves Foundation thing? Every player donates 1% of his salary to the Braves Foundation. The Braves are just this cash that the Braves do. Did you see Sean Murphy's re-signing?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
even remember
ridiculous.
the total number. What do they do here?
A crime.
Austin Riley signed 7 years, 210. Rafael Devers, 11, 333 or whatever. I mean,
Mm.
come on. Like the signings, that's another story. I'll get into Zach's rants or something, some new segment where I'll just go off about this. But it's the Brave. I mean, you look at their rotation still. I mean, Max Fried, all-star pitcher. Spencer Strider was a baller last year. They got Charlie Morton there. I mean, it's a pretty locked up rotation. Kyle Wright was pretty good last year. And then look at their lineup. I mean, they won 101 games, won the NL East, and Ronald Acuna kind of stunk last year. I mean, Ozzy Albies was hurt. I think the Dansby Swanson loss, I think he was a little overrated. He had a fantastic season last year, but I think it's a little bigger than people think. Like Vaughn Grisham's just going to slide in at shortstop and be the guy. Like, I don't necessarily think switching Sean Murphy for Dansby Swanson is necessarily an upgrade, especially when you already had Darnell. They traded William Contreras, which thank God now his stupid Narcos walk-up song. But I don't know. I don't really think they got better. I mean, they didn't get worse. Sean
They
Murphy's
feel the same. They feel the same.
they feel the same. I mean, they feel the same. And it feels like if the Mets signed Correa, they got better.
Yeah.
And I think it's the Braves. I like the Phillies. Harper had Tommy John though, and he's out until mid-season. I think they're going to start behind the eight ball again. I think it's going to be a two-horse race, and it's all about health because both of these teams have some health concerns. The Braves have health concerns as well. I don't know. It's the Braves is the team, though I'm not. It's the Mets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I mean, listen, I do like the Phillies, but again, with having no Harper for most of the season, and just because last year they weren't that great anyway, and they just, again, got hot at the right time. That's what sent them to the World Series. It's not going to work like that for a full season. It never does. So it's going to be the Braves again.
And Trey Turner,
Yeah.
11 years, 300 million to the Phillies. He turned down 342 from the Padres. It's a little weird. Turned down
Yeah.
42 extra mil. I know Aaron Judge turned down an extra millions from the Padres, an extra year and 50 million. That doesn't count. He wanted to
Different.
be Trey Turner. I guess he wanted to move closer towards the East, where his wife's from in Jersey. But I don't really like that contract. His game is all predicated on speed. This is different than like a Judge or a Correa or something. Correa is more defense, but I think that'll translate at third. I don't really like that contract. That's so much money to give to a guy who's going to be playing shortstop till he's 42. He's already not a great defensive shortstop. Your game's predicated on speed. I don't know if that meshes long term. And Taijuan Walker, dude, I'm so glad he's in the division. 4 years, 72 million to the Phillies. I mean, come on, what is that? There's so many good pitchers to pick from, and they picked that. The Mets signed Senga 575. Senga, I've never seen him throw a major league pitch. I'm pretty confident he's better than Taijuan Walker.
Oh yeah, 100%, no doubt. I do want to touch on though something real quick. When you were talking about the loss of Dansby Swanson, I just want to loop back to that. I think you're right. I think that is bigger than. Oh, Vaughn Grisham's good. He could just slide in and be that. I think we forget. I think Dansby Swanson was a huge presence in that locker room. A veteran guy, really good player. Like he was more than just being a good player. Like he was huge to that locker room. I think a lot of them talks about how big of a leader Dansby was throughout his time in Atlanta. I think losing him is big. I mean, you have guys like Acuna that's been there before. Matt Olson's been there before. You know, he's been there all of last year. He's a good player. I just don't know if any of them are going to have that voice too, especially because I feel like Dansby had to step into that role when Freddie Freeman left. Who knows who's going to step into that Dansby Swanson role now that he's gone too? And I think we really forget like football leadership's big, but usually, I mean, a guy's skill set speaks for itself. If he's good, he's going to make plays in the field. But baseball, having a really strong locker room voice is huge, huge, because we know how much baseball is predicated on a guy's confidence and how much that means. So I think losing him as a leader in that locker room is huge. But yeah, I think Mets, they're going to have to beat the Braves. Like you said, if you want to be the best, got to beat the best.
And one
Right.
point in the Braves too. I know loyalty is just absolutely dead in sports. If Jacob DeGrom is leaving the Mets, it feels like loyalty is dead. It's actually nice that Aaron Judge re-signed and kind of reaffirmed that someone can stay with one team forever. But Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson, that's like homegrown talent right there. Dansby, an Atlanta kid, and just to let those two guys walk in back-to-back off seasons, regardless of the outcome, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny that you say that about a player not coming back and coming back to his homegrown team. It's funny because in this case, if you know with DeGrom leaving, that's more on DeGrom just not wanting to be there anymore. He just seemed like he didn't want to be a Met. But in this case, it was kind of the Braves not doing their job. You know, letting Freddie Freeman. Freddie wanted to come back. I know it was some foul play with his agent too. There was some weird stuff there. But in this case with Dansby, it didn't seem like the Braves were really ever considering bringing him back either. So
It's weird.
yeah, it's weird. It is weird.
Braves Foundation money laundering scheme or something.
Gotta be. Something's fishy's going on to get Sean Murphy for that price. And Austin Riley, weird.
Paying him on the side or something.
Yeah, I don't trust it.
Uncle Steve, straight up guy, pays guys face value, gives
Yeah,
them more than they deserve.
which
Braves,
you like
not.
to see. An honest guy
Nice guy.
using his honest living to pay an honest wage.
Yeah. This is
Um,
non-sketchy living.
yeah, exactly. All right, so I want to ask you too. Trade deadline rolls around. You know, Mets are still fighting for that division lead with the Braves. What hole do you think needs to be filled to push the Mets over the top and win the division?
It's a good question. It's going to be health dependent
Mhm.
because I mean you look at the Mets right now. There's really no holes. The entire bullpen was free agent this offseason because I mean you can never have enough arms. I think that's kind of the answer right here. Mets have enough bats presently constructed. You can always throw another veteran in there. It can't hurt. But I mean the bullpen arms. You can never have enough arms in the starting rotation or in the bullpen. Look at the bullpen right now. I mean Diaz is your closer. It's fair to say he's the best closer in the game right now. His setup guy is David Robertson. Pretty, I mean, you know him well. He's pretty solid. I mean, he's late in his career. He throws a lot of sliders. And then Adam Ottavino as well. He's a very similar pitcher to Robertson. And then they acquired Brooks Raley from Tampa. It's kind of a sneaky Wandy Peralta kind of like lefty. He throws weird sidearm thing, but it's kind of effective. And Drew Smith, who's been around for a while, it's a pretty solid top five. But I mean, you could always add an extra arm. The one thing they have Diaz, he's the only power arm in there. The rest of the guys are kind of like finesse pitchers, so you could probably add another power arm, I guess. I don't know. This that's hard to project now. There's not really a hole. I mean, catcher could be a hole, but we have so many people to just plug in there. Everyone they like playing. Nito has a place in this team for a while, I think, and they signed Omar Narvaez, which I didn't even really understand why we needed another catcher. James McCann's gone. There's
Mm,
James McCann's
huge
gone.
hole, huge loss for the Mets.
Positive, yeah, huge.
Franchise player.
But Omar Narvaez, we kind of signed. I didn't understand that as much, but like the pitchers love pitching to Nito. Narvaez is also a strong defensive catcher. Alvarez hits tanks. I don't know. Probably the arms. You can always have arms.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it would be catcher if Alvarez isn't playing well or something, or Nito's not doing good. That's or maybe DH too if Vogelback gets hurt or something. But yeah, no, arms are always a good addition. Last question here I got for you. Out of the some of the bigger faces of the Mets, right? I'm gonna limit it down to three hitters for you. Tell me which one is the most important going into this season as far as production and all that goes. Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Starling Marte. Which guy do you think needs to have a big season to take the Mets over the top?
I think it's Lindor. I think it's Lindor, man. I mean, I think there's kind of his first season, the first month of the season was horrendous. It was terrible introduction to New York. Kind of happens to people when they come to New York, but he kind of got hot late in that season. Then he got hurt, and that completely derailed the Mets season. This year, I think he had one of the more sneaky, underrated. It's crazy. The dude is a 10-year, $341 million contract. If he was playing in Cleveland, we'd think of him as that guy. It's just he played on a team with Verlander and Scherzer, Correa maybe, Pete Alonso. There's so many stars on this team. It's somehow this dude gets overlooked. Mr. Smile, I mean, he's at 25 homer, 25 stolen base, hits 275, gets on base 300, 30% of the time, 300 on base percentage. It's him. And I think it is him because we've seen Pete Alonso does the same friggin' thing every year. He hits 40 home runs. He strikes out a little more than you'd like. He hits 40 home runs. He kind of has a better average on base percentage than people think. And then I think Marte's good, but like your World Series fate is a little resting in your stars. Lindor's the franchise. He really is the face of the franchise. I mean, when he came over, he ushered in the new era. He is somehow underrated. I mean, every team in the MLB would probably sign up to have Francisco Lindor be their shortstop. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty fair to say. For the next decade, him versus give me any option, I'm taking Lindor. And I think it's him. If the Mets are taking the next stretch, it's him. And he's loved a lot more in New York than he is out of New York. And so for him to lead the Mets there, I think that's big.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a good point. I think you're right in the fact that we do tend to overlook Lindor. And I think what's funny is like I think people overlook him. I'm not a big Lindor fan, but I will give him credit in the sense that I think people do overlook him until it's time to blame someone. And then I feel like everybody blames Lindor, which
It's
is
great.
it's just crazy. It is crazy. And again, I'm not a big Lindor fan, but he does get a lot more crap than Pete does or Marte does or Canna
Yeah.
does. Like it always seems to fall on Lindor for some reason.
It's weird. They always go to him to address it. I mean, the thumbs down thing the first time, that's not good. Dude, that happens. It's his first year in New York. The fans did not turn on him. They love the dude. I mean, they cheered Javi Baez the day after he did the thumbs down thing. So like
Right.
that's if that's really in the rat raccoon, I mean, shit like that happened. If that's really your worst thing, I'll take it. And I think it's him because Pete Alonso's gonna hit 40 tanks every year, especially with Lindor and Correa hitting in front and behind him. Pete Alonso's gonna break out. It's just I think it's Lindor. It could be Correa though, if he's on the Mets.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, that wraps up everything I had in mind for Zach Attack. I want to jump over to two because I feel like there haven't really been that many crazy signings. Like there have been some good moves, right? Teoscar Hernandez going to Seattle. I think that was pretty
Love
interesting.
that one.
Yeah, I love that one too, and I think it's huge if you look at their outfield right now. If it's Teoscar, Julio Rodriguez, and apparently they're looking for Brian Reynolds potentially, and
That would be
they could deal some arms. They're deep in the arms department. That could be huge. Would you think that'd be good?
That would be an insanely stacked outfield. Teoscar, the Blue Jays traded Teoscar was weird. They did get some reliever who apparently has, Baseball Savant loves his like off-speed pitches. He's ranked in the 99th percentile of a lot of stuff. It was kind of a weird trade. I guess he only has 1 year left in his contract. But another sneaky move that I like is Wilson Contreras to the Cardinals. I hate the like loyalty. I talk about loyalty. Like You can't go from the Cubs to the Cardinals. I like the move for the
Yeah.
Cardinals, but I mean that it looked like he wanted to be a Cardinal the whole time. Their lineup, I mean, that's one of the better offensive guys in baseball. Going from Yadier Molina, who's Hall of Famer, but he was not good the last 5 years. Going upgrading that, putting him in a lineup with Goldschmidt and Arenado, and you got the young guys like Newt Bar, who, by the way, did you see the video of him hitting in like his boxers the other day? That was like the like
No, I gotta watch. I love New. I'm a big Newt Bar fan, so I gotta check that
it
out.
was just really sus, man. I don't know why
Oh,
he's doing
sus. Oh, all right.
it's just a little weird. Like, why you got to post that? We get it. And Newt Bar, you got Brendan Donovan, who's a young guy. I like that addition into that lineup. Their pitching cannot keep up with the Mets, the Braves, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are something I want to talk about too. The very strange offseason, very, very un-Dodger like. You let Trey Turner walk. I think he wanted to leave. I get it. You re-signed Kershaw, but they got some holes, man. Justin Turner left. Re-signing JD Martinez 1 year, 10 million. That's going to be a heist. Syndergaard's a Dodger now. This dude's a clown. We didn't care about him.
It's your
But
guy, dude. That's your favorite.
just I don't know. He plays for every team in the big leagues now. I don't know. I just like they have three top rookie prospects. Like Gavin Lux may play shortstop. He kind of hasn't panned out. So then they're gonna have a rookie starting at second, a rookie starting at third, and a rookie starting in the outfield. I know you got top prospects, man, but like that's what we were just talking about with the Yankees. That's why you keep guys like IKF around. Their insurance policy seems they're putting a lot at stake here, but they haven't really done anything too, and their payrolls fallen to like $175 million. So if some star it's not going to be Otani, but if some star, Brian Reynolds, maybe some sneaky guy who could blossom in LA or something, it just feels like they're too quiet.
Yeah, you made a great point. It's very un-Dodger like. Like I feel like they haven't really addressed anything. They got Clayton Kershaw. Whoop he do. He doesn't look the same type of pitcher that he used to be. Didn't they let Tyler Anderson walk, right?
Yeah, he went to the Angels.
Yeah. So like, what are we doing here? I can't even name anybody
Yeah.
else in that rotation because what's his name left too?
Walker Buehler got hurt last year, so we don't know what he's going to be like this
Right.
year. Julio Arias was good, but yeah, they said a lot of guys. Andrew Heaney,
Andrew Heaney. That's who I was thinking. Yeah, he left too, right?
yeah, he went to Texas. It's just a
Forget
strange
about
offseason, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I like the JD Martinez thing. I think he'll probably be a superstar in LA.
Yeah.
And then a little further south in California, we both apparently are hated by Red Sox Nation, but they love Xander Bogaerts. The worst contract of the offseason, man. The worst contract of the offseason. 11 years, $280 million to that guy who's already a poor defensive shortstop. His home run stats are going like that the last couple of years. I love the player, still an all-star caliber player now. That contract's going to age horribly.
Mhm.
Plus, Tatis is a shortstop. He struggles at shortstop a little bit too. And Hyson Kim, dude was a stud in the playoffs last
Yeah.
year.
He's
Better
sick.
defensive shortstop than both of those. They asked Bogarts what position he plays in a press conference. He said, "I play shortstop." Tatis, "I play shortstop." Hyson Kim, I mean, he's not a star, so he doesn't really get a choice there. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
There's a little
Well,
problems. I love the Padres lineup. I love that lineup in this competing now. I think their pitching still a little weak. Competing now, I mean, the Padres are the Mets, Braves, Padres, and you have to just say the Dodgers, based off it, and the Phillies are probably a cut ahead of everyone else right now. But man, I hate the contract. Sorry, Boston. I'm glad you didn't give him that contract. I would have loved for him to stay a Red Sox because he just represented so much for that city. But man, I don't know. That's bad.
yeah, I think it comes down to two things that I think are really interesting. I think one, it's the Padres not being able to deliver on multiple moves. Like they didn't bring back Manea. They weren't able to deliver on Judge. They weren't able to. Didn't they? Did they offer for Correa?
No, but Trey Turner,
Trey Turner, right? Trey Turner. So I feel like them not being able to get those guys, I think that was kind of big for them. So they had to go out and make some type of move, and Xander kind of made sense for them. It doesn't really make sense for them, but I think they had to go make a big splash, do something to get under their bat in that lineup. I think what's interesting though is Manny Machado. I think he has an opt out after this year. He could be traded, right?
so he could be an insurance policy for Bogarts to could go play third base or something. I don't know.
That's what I think. I think after this year they might let Machado walk
And,
potentially.
and the weird thing is like they're not like I know there's a myth. Small market teams is a myth. Like people want to talk about how the Mets and Yankees shouldn't spend that much. Well, the little teams should spend too. The Padres, credit to them, they've been spending. Soto's a free agent in 2 years. Machado this year. They're gonna have to pay some of these guys if they want to keep them around. I know Tatis and Bogarts are now locked in long term. but Soto and Machado are better players. Those
Right.
are the two guys you want around long term. So I don't know what they got to figure out there. A lot of weird ones. I liked the Chris Bassett signing to
Mhm.
Toronto. Cheap signing. Dude was really good for the Mets outside of the
Yeah.
playoffs. He signed to be like the number 3 or 4 in Toronto. 3 years, 63. That's a great signing. I think people think the Blue Jays kind of failed to keep up with the Yankees or the Rays this offseason. But that Dalton Varsho trade, sneaky good player.
Yeah.
27
So good.
bombs, 16 stolen bases. I know they had a surplus of catchers, so they gave up top prospect and Lourdes Gurriel. That's a sneaky thing. I still think Carlos Rodon was exactly what the Yankees needed because now they're cut ahead of all these teams in the division. There's a lot of those. I don't even know if Bassett's under the radar. Everyone kind of knows who he is, but there's a lot of those moves that the under the radar the moves are what wins you the championships, not necessarily Aaron Judge.
No doubt. No doubt. Move like Tommy Kahnle to New York Yankees. That'll
Tommy
win.
King,
And Jose Quintana too. I think the type of moves that win you
those
games.
those under the radar. JD Martinez.
Yep.
It's not really underrated. It's just it's the fit the which all right. We're just gonna talk about the Red Sox right now. I don't know why I got like this burning anger towards the Red Sox Nation right now.
Welcome to my world, dude. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, I mean I'm like offended. All right, Devers re-signing that was a must. Mr. Bloom, you get an A+ for that.
Right.
The rest of their offseason. Letting Xander walk, that's bad optics.
Joke show, yeah.
It's bad optics. It's fine. That's fine. You signed Kenley Jansen. All right. I mean, like, just
It's
like
kind of washed.
a mid closer at this point. You signed Justin Turner. All right. He can play some third base and first base. He's 40 years old. They signed the big dude from Japan, Yoshida. I like him. He got a lot of money. Apparently, baseball execs thought that was a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
Fangraphs projection came out. It said he was going to hit 214 with 12 home runs. That's I don't know if that's a glitch or it's a transition to the big leagues or something, but that is a little rough. And they signed Corey Kluber today. I mean, this
Wow.
feels like a Mets offseason from the Wilpon era. It's like let's sign guys who used to be stars, so it looks like we're trying. Like the AL East is a juggernaut. The Orioles are pretty good, but the Orioles are actually more than pretty good.
Yeah, they're really
And then
good.
the Rays, the Yankees, the Blue Jays. I don't know. It just feels like pick a direction, man. We
Mhm.
going for it? This half-in strategy that the Cubs have tried, it just fails. Like
Right.
you got to be all in. Like last year, you loved the Cubs. Remember you picked them as your sleeper. I remember that.
No,
But,
I did like them.
no, but like this half-in strategy, time and time again, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I guess I'll crap on the Red Sox. I think they have the worst offseason of any baseball team. I think their problem is they're gonna fool themselves at some point this season. They're
Yeah.
gonna win 10 games. We're gonna be like, oh, the Reds. Remember they did that last year.
Yeah, they
They won
did.
10
Everybody's
games and
like, oh, they're
everyone's like,
going to win the
oh, the
division.
Red Sox. Like, cool, they'll beat someone because they have veteran players, and these veteran players will get hot for a stretch, and then they'll fall off a cliff.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's more than just, this year. It's more than just a rebuild or whatever type of thing. It's a legacy thing. Like we've seen with a lot of teams like the Yankees, right? Retaining Aaron Judge and retaining other players. We've seen it all over the league with guys sticking around, like Clayton Kershaw going back to the Dodgers. And these are older players, mind you. Xander Bogaerts is a young guy, and it's the same thing that happened with Mookie Betts. These guys were on your World Series team. Like, imagine that Red Sox roster still today if they had kept Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts. Team goes crazy, dude. That's an awesome roster. That 1, 2, 3 is probably might be the best in the league.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at a team that's a shell of itself. Like Devers is good, but he can't carry the team. And I think he's not a good defensive third baseman really at all. He makes a ton of errors in the field that cost them runs. And outside of that, I mean, yeah, they ripped off that nice win streak that you were talking about last year. But outside of that, I mean, they're a mess all over the field. And it's not just a lineup issue either. Saw so many fielding errors last year that cost the Red Sox so many runs more than I've ever seen before. And like you said, in an AL East that's super competitive with the Yankees, the Orioles on the rise, the Toronto Blue Jays, a Rays team that you can never count out, the Red Sox might very well be in last place. I think that's totally viable. Again, for that to happen again to them. And again, I think a big issue too that people aren't really talking about with this Devers contract is, yeah, it's 11 years. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but it does not have a trade clause. And that tells me, I mean, you look at all these other teams, they all have no trade clauses in these contracts. That tells me that Chaim Bloom isn't really fully set in on having Devers for that full 11 years. Like I could see 3, 4 years from now, if it's not working out, Devers being a trade deadline guy that could ship away from Boston to get a couple of prospects. And has it really worked out for them? No. I mean, look at when they traded Mookie Betts, one of their biggest acquisitions was Jeter Downs, and they cut him this year. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Uh,
Guys who are proven and won you a championship walk away just for prospects who end up doing nothing.
Look, I'd rather re-sign a guy like Brandon Nimmo
Yep.
and watch him stink than watch him go be like a superstar for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Like I'm not letting home guys go like that.
Right.
If somebody offers them DeGrom level money and it's just like way out of the range, fine. But I'm not letting homegrown stars go like that. And that's why I appreciate these young teams like the Orioles, really sneaky. I talked about last year how they could be the next Astros. And
Mhm.
then teams like the Diamondbacks, really young roster. These kind of up and coming teams, they're so fun and easy to root for because they're just homegrown prospects. They're cheap. They put a little money in it, and all of a sudden, bang, you got a World Series contender.
Yep. And that's the exact opposite of what the Red Sox are doing because they have the young players and they just need to throw money on them and maybe get a signing or two. And Chaim Bloom's trying to act smart, go after other people. And it just hasn't shown any dividends thus far. And it looks like they're kind of stuck in a dead end where you said, like the Cubs, they don't know where to go.
And now they got this weird veteran-laden roster that it could feasibly be around the playoff cut. But I mean, what are you going to do? But
Yeah.
one team I got to give a shout out to, the Los Angeles Angels. On the precipice of selling the team, the Angels decided to go for it this offseason. Tyler Anderson, 3-year, $39 million contract. They added Hunter Renfroe, sneaky. Another
Mhm.
one. Red Sox 2 years ago hit 30 bombs. They let him go for Jackie Bradley Jr., who they cut mid-year, and
Yeah.
then Renfroe hit another 30 bombs. Renfroe actually looks identical to Mike Trout. You got to go see the pictures. It's hilarious.
I'll check it
People are
out.
going to get them confused. Renfroe and then Brandon Drury on top of that to come play a little bit. And they traded for your old pal Gio Urshela.
My guy.
That is a sneaky. Okay, that's a little stretch. That's a sneaky team. If Rendon's healthy, Trout's healthy, and Otani's healthy, big ifs. That
I was going to say, I don't want to hype them up too much and be like, oh,
yeah,
they're crazy. They're going to be sneaky good because I feel like we say that every year about the Angels and it
yeah.
never happens.
No, they could just be up outside. This is just a team to watch.
Yeah. Okay.
Team to watch. I think they could sneak into the playoffs. We're not close enough to picking who's going to make the playoffs. I think they could sneak in there. That is a sneaky roster. I'll watch out for that. That rotation is looking solid now. Otani Lee, Tyler Anderson. That's an awesome signing right there.
Mm.
The Detmers threw a no-hitter last year. He looks pretty strong. And look at that lineup now. You got some pieces there. Taylor Ward, remember he had like 340 before he got hurt for 2 months of the season? Him, Trout, and Renfro's your outfield. You got some sneaky pieces in the infield. Drury's there now. Urshela's a pretty good player. You got Fletcher. Renfrio. I like that. I like that team. I like that team. They're a team to watch. I just appreciate a team like that. Tony's a free agent at the end of the year. Everyone's like they're not going to be able to re-sign him. Well, you know what? We're not going to sit here and suck this year. We're going to try to win with him, show him he wants to be here. I appreciate that. That is a team that deserves some props. And so do the Rangers. Young team, they're doing it right too. Young team, you're kind of on the step. You get Seager and Simeon. I like these teams that start signing guys while they're rebuilding.
Yeah.
Like the Rangers are rebuilding. They signed their shortstop and second baseman of the decade. Now they got their ace of the next decade. Then they signed Nathan Eovaldi, another guy the Red Sox like. Oh, they signed Nathan Eovaldi, Andrew Heaney. This rotation's good. They and the Angels are still far off of the Astros and Mariners,
Mhm.
but those are two teams to watch towards the future. A lot of sneaky young teams. There's very few teams that I have near zero faith in that they're just going to flat out suck. There's very few teams, which is good for baseball. The problem for baseball, which we can get into on another day, is the spending discrepancies.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a problem on the top end. I think it's the problem on the bottom end.
Yeah. Agreed. And listen, I think you're right though. Who knows what's going to end up happening? Whether it does become, the Angels make the playoffs or the Rangers, whatever. But it always feels like one of those young teams that are mid rebuild find a way to sneak in. Like it seemed like last year it might have been the Orioles. In the past, we saw the Rays do it. Have those young guys and apply metrics and make a
Yeah, the
good.
Guardians.
Yeah, right. Guardians too. Exactly. The Guardians this year. Right. Perfect example. So I think we could totally see that happen again for one of these teams. Like who knows? Maybe the Angels will sneak in, or maybe a team like the Rangers will sneak in. That'd be cool to see. I would love to see that.
The D-backs or something.
Yeah, D-backs too. Another team. I would like to see the Orioles more than anybody. Not
I
not
like
to overtake the Yankees or anything, but they really feel like a team that's going to take that next leap this
I
year.
actually I actually thought the Orioles, I was a little disappointed in their offseason, to be
Yeah,
honest. James McCann's great addition, by the way. You can welcome him to Baltimore. He's probably gonna hit like 300, but
probably.
but I thought they were gonna be players for Correa because they have all those ex Astros in the front office and in the coaching staff. I thought they were gonna be players for Correa. If you put Correa in that lineup, that
Mm,
already has those young studs who are everyone's locked up for the near future. Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman played like 100 games. He might be the best catcher. He is the best catcher in baseball at this point.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just, I don't, I don't know. I was a little disappointed to be honest. I thought now was the perfect time. You peaked. You almost made the playoffs last year, and then I thought this was the year you add someone, especially in the AL East. They have
It ended up
time.
being
They
their
have
downfall
time.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they don't think they're there yet. Maybe they still think they're a year away, which is fine. Next offseason, you can grab some. You can grab someone anytime you want. But I thought they were going to be a little sneaky player for someone of relevance, which they did not do.
Right. Well, that's kind of like the thing with the trade deadline last year. Everybody thought that maybe they were going to load somebody in and add another piece before the trade deadline and then make a serious push, and they didn't do that. Again, maybe you're right. I mean, no reason to really rush with these young guys. I feel like you have lots of time in their contracts, and it only lets them get better and get more time. So that when they're in their prime is when you make a push. So I think they'll end up being fine. But yeah, Orioles could be a team that sneaks in. I think definitely for sure.
Yeah, it's been an intriguing offseason. The offseason was fun.
Yeah,
We had
it
fun.
was
Free
one of the
agency
best
was
ones in a while. I think.
Oh yeah, free agency was chaos. It's like January 5th or something right now, and the free agency's done pretty much. It's pretty much done. When Correa wraps up, there's very few guys of relevance left on the market. No offense to any of them. It's just kind of how it is, which is fun. Now, in the future episodes, we can start projecting ahead to next season. That's where it gets a little more contentious. Rumors are fun and stuff. We can really go to battle soon.
Yeah, we could do that, and I'm sure before the season starts, there's gonna be one or two trades that end up blowing everything up. I feel like that's always the way it goes. We might get one sneaky trade in there, like I think the Yankees or the Mariners or someone like that is gonna get a deal done. That's gonna be like, whoa, this team's for real, you know?
Yeah, no, we'll think of some bold predictions to give the crew coming up.
Yeah,
There's some sneaky because I'm telling you, the Dodgers are disturbingly quiet. Just stuff like that. Something's got to happen. Some of these teams are brewing, and maybe some of these teams decided to let the Mets do their thing, let the Yankees do their thing, let everything simmer, and then bam, you're coming out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're like, okay, I see it.
yeah, totally. Could totally see it. But we'll get to all that later on down the line when the season gets closer and closer. Right now, we're kind of off that high end of the hot stove, and it's almost time for spring training. I think what would we 2 months away, right?
Not even a month.
Month. So we're a month away from spring training. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, everybody stick around. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, follow us on TikTok, Couch Coach Media. Be sure to check all that out, and we'll see you around soon.
Peace out.